Hey folks, it's Deb from Queerstrology, back at it again with another astrology reading, this time for Tiff from Ultimatum Queer Love. So, at first, I would like to talk about astrology while we're waiting for some people to come in and maybe even answer a few questions. And then once once Tiff joins, which Tiff is going to be joining us live as well, we'll be able to talk about their natal chart. So just so everybody knows, Tiff's pronouns are they, them. I am Deb, and my pronouns are she, her. Oh, here we are. Look at us,
What's
we
up?
did it.
Fashionably 2 minutes late. What's going on?
Oh, typical air sign move right there, just saying.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah. So, hi. Hey, I was just talking to everybody about your chart behind your back. I'm sorry. Now that you're here, we can talk about it in front of your
Okay,
face, okay?
great.
Everybody, this is Tiff, by
Perfect.
the way,
Way
in
to, way
case you
to
don't know who
eavesdrop.
this is.
Way to gossip.
I'm Deb, by the way, for those of you that just know me as Queerstrology, that's also fine, but Deb. And so behind me here, you'll
So
see
you
your
do
chart.
have a name after all. You do have a
Uh,
name.
Sometimes I might I should just legally change it at this point. About
At this
calling
point,
out
nothing
names and
surprises
stuff,
me.
we don't want to. I did make this for mature
Yeah.
audiences only, so if you were under 18, get out of here, okay?
You know what? I support this totally
Mm-hmm.
because I have no filter either. So
Basically,
yeah.
I was just kind of telling people the gist of things. But so right here on the outside edge, you see all the signs, right? So everybody has
Hmm.
all 12 of the signs in their chart. So for you, where we start and everybody's chart is right here. See where that ASC is? Because that stands
Yeah.
for ascendant or rising sign.
Okay.
Okay. So when people are asking about
Wait.
that,
Why
like,
do we
what,
start there?
why is it what?
Why do we start there?
Because it is the point of origin for your chart. Because at the moment that you were born, that constellation for you, which is Virgo, was on the eastern horizon because it changes every 2 hours. So
Okay.
that's how we know what your rising sign is. And so that's where we start. It's the ruler of your first house and your entire chart. In fact, it's also your planet ruler. So you're ruled by Mercury,
Okay. I
just so
have
you know.
one question before we get
Yeah.
started. One big question that's going to make everything make so much more sense. So I'm a
Okay.
person that I need scientific understanding to understand why things happen the way they do. So my question to you is before we get started is
Uh huh.
I understand the concept of when you were born in a particular place, where the stars, the planets, and everything were aligned as to why that is that general makeup of the navigation of your life, maybe part of your
Mm-hmm.
personality, things of that. However, why, what's the fundamental reason behind why that dictates? Is it gravitational pull? Is it what is, why are you the way you are? Because of just so happens of where you were born and how the planets were aligned. How does
Sure.
that dictate your life?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's not like astrology isn't an exact science, but it's based in science from
Okay.
astronomy, right?
Hmm.
So, what they were actually used to use it for is knowing the time or the seasons. Hence, like why we have these 12 seasons, right? Because
Okay.
they're like, okay, it's time to plant crops. It's time to do this because that constellation is up in the sky. So then they started noticing certain things like, hey, maybe you're born in like November, as an example. And so you're either a Scorpio or a Sagittarius. And those people tend to usually be taller because they're born in fall when there's an abundance of food and things like that. Now, I'm not saying that at this point we haven't obviously evolved in different ways, but I'm just talking about the beginning of it, right? Now, if you
Hmm.
take it scientifically speaking, we are made of the same stuff that the stars are made of,
Yeah,
literally,
yeah, I do know
right?
that. Yep.
Dust and particles and all that.
Yep.
So we have come from this outer space area, and in fact, as far back as 8 generations, we have particles that have come from these people's charts as well, like people that made you. So it just keeps going back, where you just have these what we call particle entanglements, if you will, with certain planets or other astral bodies. There's dust clouds, there's comets, there's all sorts of craziness out there, right? And then we just give them like actually, let me explain. So like you have the personality traits which we use for the constellations. But then in the middle where you have like these 12 numbers you can see,
Hmm.
these are the houses
Yeah,
and
the
the
houses.
houses represent a part of your life.
Okay.
Okay? So you have a personality, then you have the part of your life, and then these little glyphs those are focus points because there's thousands of them. We're just talking about the biggest ones, right? The planets and
Mhm.
the two luminaries of the sun and the moon. Now, the thing
Yeah.
is that these are all moving constantly, and there's two different ellipticals, right? There's the elliptical that has the signs, but then there's also the ones that has the houses. So we snapshot that sphere at that moment, flatten it, and here's what we're looking at, right?
Okay.
So
Yep.
historically speaking, like people that are born under the certain season will have traits of their ego because of the time that they were born into the world, right? And then like people who have a moon in a certain thing will have certain emotions because that's based off of, you know, that pull, probably gravitational, right? So
Mhm.
like we don't necessarily can't see all of the science of it, but it just happens like it seems to work out when we're talking about it. All I'm doing is reading what this chart is saying to me by snapshot of where all these things were at that moment that you were born. So if it resonates with you, cool. But usually it goes more about validation of certain things, like, oh, that's why that might be a little more difficult. And
Mhm.
funnily, like before you got on here, I had this one up, and I'll show you behind me, which is what people are used to looking at when they go and they're like looking at they're like, oh, I'm gonna go look at my chart, right? So
Yeah.
then they pull this up and they can see all this stuff, and they're like, well, what the does that mean, right?
Yeah.
But what I was telling people is I was like, I want you to just notice something really interesting here. Only I think there's 14 when I think there's 14 placements here or 12. I can't remember. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. That's a good number. We're used to that in astrology. So out of these 12, only 5, which is less than 50%, are not an earth sign. You know how you were
Okay.
like, I need scientific information? Yeah,
Yeah.
you sure
I'm a very
do.
analytical person for sure.
Yeah, because of all this earth that you have. And we're
Yeah.
going to talk about it towards the end, more towards the end. You have 2 earth grand trines.
A
Yeah.
very emotionally driven person, but also analytical.
Well, yeah, I mean, the fact that your ascendant is Virgo and your moon is in Pisces, they're
Pisces, yeah,
already
yeah.
opposite signs.
Yeah, I'm
They're
like a
already
walking
opposite.
oxymoron, yeah.
Right. So your emotions are they're kind of fluid and you're more intuitive with your emotions. And it's
Hmm.
interestingly, I think even in Virgo's house.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. And then you're a Virgo rising, so your first impression, or
Hmm.
like
A
what people think of
little bit.
you, is very detail oriented. That
Yeah.
structure, right?
Yep.
So that makes total sense. But let's also turn on this one so I can explain to you what the heck all these things are, right? So these lines that get turned on here, these are aspects. So they give us that relationship between your focus points in your chart. So it tells us how they get along. Okay. So I'm literally going to read you your chart and we're going to talk about every single part of it right now. Like, watch
Right now.
this. Are you ready?
Right now, guys. For the people
All
that are
right. So,
on my live or like, hey, that are just joining in,
yeah.
did a whole breakdown. Probably, if you haven't already noticed, did a whole breakdown of like the cast members and all of their charts and everything to do with astrology with all of our signs on the ultimatum, all the cast members. So right
Yeah.
now, she is doing an in-depth reading on my personal chart. So I'm actually really
Yes.
excited to kind of see this.
Yes.
And
Because
as
you were
far as
like,
I know,
actually, you were like, what does this mean?
what does
You
this
were like
mean?
one of the
So
first
I'm an
people that's like, what does
Aquarius
this mean?
sun. I'm a
Yeah.
moon Pisces, which is like my inner child, like my intuition, and then a Virgo rising. And that's where I stop, and I need an expert like Deb to help me figure out all the
Well,
lesbian
luckily
drama in
I'm
my
here.
life.
Look, we all have that, okay?
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
let's not lie. But yeah, we all have different flavors of it. And like I like to tell people, we're all a little bit crazy. It's whether or not your crazies match. You know what I mean?
There you go.
So for you as a Virgo rising, so again, we always start at right here at the first house. Like remember, here's 1 through 12, and we
Mm-hmm.
read astrology charts going counterclockwise. Okay. So when you were born, Virgo was on the eastern horizon, which means that you are ruled by the planet of Mercury, which is the ruler of communication as well.
Okay.
Okay. Now, it also rules Gemini, but what's the difference between those two? Well, Gemini is an external communicator, and Virgo is an internal communicator. They're
Okay.
critical, they're kind of hard on themselves, especially if you have it as your rising sign because it rules the first house. The first house is
Yeah.
the house of self. So this is the kind of attitude that you're bringing in as Virgo to a part of your life, which is the self. Okay. So you're going to be
Mm-hmm.
looking for details, super detail oriented, having a
Oh yeah.
checklist to make sure that you've done what you need to do, you know,
Yeah.
and that you're, and it's not, it has focus to do with what you're doing, how you're progressing. Like, okay, I've done that. I can check that off my list, you know? Because you're trying to achieve a certain level of perfection. I want to say this because I always need to say this to Virgo risings. Stop being so damn hard on yourselves.
Yeah.
Like it's just, I know it's
I think
inherent
it
into
causes
who you
resistance.
are, but
It's like self-sabotaging, right? Where you
yep.
try too hard or you try to overanalyze certain things. And
Yep.
I tend to
And
get like
that's
that.
Virgo. Yep.
Yeah.
That's the Virgo part because they want to know all the details. So like I was saying about Earth, let me talk about this for a second. We have 4 elements in astrology, right? We have fire, earth, and they all have like these little baselines to them, meaning fire is energy, earth is structure,
Yep.
water is emotion, and air is intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
So then we have 3 modes to even those out, meaning that, like, as an example, Virgo is the mutable earth sign. So there's cardinal, fixed, and mutable. Cardinal signs are the initiators. Fixed signs, they like to take things and like fix them up and then release them back out.
Okay.
And mutable signs like to finish them in general. So if you think about it, Virgo is the finisher of structure,
Okay.
right? They want to complete everything per my last email. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's their kind of energy. So that's how people will see you at first before they get to know you. They don't get
Before
to
they
see
know
the
me, I
alien
was going
part
to say,
yet.
because I was like, that's
Yeah.
sort of how I come off. But so I
Uh-huh.
actually do have ADD, and the
Yeah.
level of focus sometimes is so hard. I get like, yeah. So I need the structure in order to function. That's how I initially come off. But there's like
Absolutely. Yeah.
sometimes like inner chaos going on. And
That's
then I get
understandable.
driven by
That's
the
also thanks
emotional
to your
aspect.
Pisces moon too. I
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
say, but now interestingly, like you don't have any placements in your second house either, but that doesn't mean anything because there's thousands, so you might have one or whatever. But we talk about what rules that house. So when we do that, we look at the lead line. So in this case, the lead line for the second house, I'm trying to get my hand to stay in there, goes this way, right?
Yeah.
And it lands right here on Libra. So Libra rules your second house. All right. So what that means is Libra is the cardinal air sign. So they're the initiator of intelligence. That's why it's hard for them to make a decision because they want to make sure they're fair about everything, right? So that's kind of what you're bringing into the second house of value.
Okay.
So for those of us who this is a very interesting one. You'll know what I'm talking about here, but there is something that about wanting to be fair regardless of the circumstances.
Mm,
Sometimes even when it's unfair to you, as long as it seems more fair to the other person, it's the right thing to do. So you
yeah.
seem to value that, and that can get you in trouble sometimes, right? Like any of us,
Yeah.
but you do crave that. You have a great value for it, and it's a good possession to have, like being able to be
Mm-hmm.
fair, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the energy that you're looking for and the value that you're looking for in every part of your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. I feel like the humanity aspect of me, it's just like,
Yeah, that's the
and it's
Aquarius.
kind of like how I see it. Like, even I'm not huge into politics, but when it comes to like, lately the world's so polar opposite, right? Especially when it comes
Yeah.
to like conservatives and people who are queer. And it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
I constantly, the messages I spread, I not try to be so cutthroat and cancel people out and not try to be this. Like, I just try to see like things like as a middle ground and like try to like mend people together. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. I just see it
I
as
mean,
like, I see where you're
honestly,
coming from, I see where you're coming
it
from.
makes sense because anybody who has experienced some sort of trauma, and especially in interpersonal relationship traumas, you're going to already have that kind of easiness to kind of go into that a little bit. The more you learn, the better it becomes, and then that's where that altruistic attitude comes from because
Mhm.
you have been the one that has been accused or like been in a position where you know that's not fair, right?
Mhm.
So you want to be fair as possible. You don't want to make any rash judgments because it's happened to you. And out of fairness, you're trying to give the example back, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And especially
And
like even like on the reunion and stuff, like I was like, I just use, I mean, obviously there's way more things in my life that I could give example of, but for the viewers that
sure.
I want to see a
Mm-hmm.
snapshot of my life, like on the reunion, like when they were saying things like, hey, like, you know, about the whole thing of Mildred's son,
Mm-hmm.
not to get too personal, um, you know, there is a level of truthness to that where I did find it hard to connect, but there is so much more context around that, that of
Right.
course in a reality TV show, you don't have the time to explain. And you know, and then on
Mhm.
top of that, I couldn't even get a voice. You know what I'm saying? So like
Oh yeah,
there is
yeah.
this
No,
level of
absolutely.
clearness and truth where I'm like, yeah, but that's not the full truth. But then I never got an opportunity to even explain all of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like there, yeah, I could see where that can be like, yeah, I see what you mean.
Well, I mean, interestingly enough, the third house is your house of communication. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. And guess what rules it? Scorpio.
What does
So,
that
what do we
mean?
know about Scorpios?
Yeah.
They're
Enlighten
a
me.
water
Enlighten me.
sign,
Can't wait.
right?
Yeah.
They're a water sign, but they're the emotional investigator. So,
Ah, yeah.
you're like, when it comes to how you're communicating, you're investigating the situation. You're like, is that real? Like, you're like, you may communicate a lot about other people more than yourself because Scorpios like to know everything about other people, but kind
Yeah.
of keep this part of them, a certain part of themselves hidden a little bit. That's why they're always looking to investigate, right?
Hmm.
So that's how you want to communicate. And on top of that, you have its native planet of Pluto in there.
Yeah.
Pluto is one of the three generational planets. So just so you know, there's Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. They each take at least 8 years or more to go through a sign. So if that's the case, anybody who's close to your age range will have these in those same sign, but not necessarily in the house that you have yours in. So your transformation is going to come through communication and the
Yeah.
investigation, emotional investigation. Like it's
Now,
spot on to what you were just saying.
does that apply to, again, I'm using the context of the
Sure.
show when we talk show. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I,
Maybe know 1% of these people in real life right now. But like when I was trying to investigate, emotionally investigate, like why would you marry someone you don't love, or why would you like when I'm having these things? Would you consider that more of like an analytical? I have to understand the logistics, or me emotionally investigating? Like why would
it's
I marry
probably
someone?
the emotional, like the emotional investigate is coming through the communication. So anytime you were communicating with this person, you were looking for those reasons. Does that make sense?
Say
Because
that again. Sorry.
there's more things involved than just your emotions. So when it comes to you talking to them about trying to figure those things out, then yes, because that's when you're communicating and your thoughts are focused on that because that's
Okay.
what it's ruling, your communication and thoughts. Now your Mercury isn't there. It is your ruling planet. So communication is a thing for you, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Um you know, and it's a big part of what you do. So it has
And that
a
was the main
focus in a
blocker.
different
That was
spot.
the main reason why we came onto the show for communication reasons. People had different reasons. Ours was literally communication.
I mean, yeah, I mean, but let's be real, like there's a lot more behind there. You know what I'm saying? So besides that were issues, but you know, we just
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely,
you're
yeah.
trying to, you know, you're trying to be reasonable, you're trying to figure out like, you know, what do you do in those situations, speaking from my own personal experience where you're trying to help somebody or you love somebody and you're trying to work through it, you think that's the point, right? You know,
Hmm.
we're taught certain things as we're growing up, society wise and whatever, and even Aquarians like such as yourself that don't like to do the norm,
Oh,
you
not
still
at
are
all.
affected by it, right? You
Yeah.
still have the ideals that come from where you grew up and how you grew up, so
Hmm.
those always come into play. But like what's interesting is you also have Sagittarius taking up a part of this house. Now it doesn't rule it, so Scorpio being, but it stands for transformation, and under its native sign of Scorpio, it's intensity. So intense
Hmm.
transformation through how you communicate, and you're looking for that, and you're going to need that from other people. It's going to be a
Oh
big
yeah.
thing for you.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, like I said, Sagittarius is there, and it rules your fourth house of home. So this is the fourth house line right here, and then you can see Sagittarius. Sagittarius is right there. If I can get a poke to it with my head now. It's right there, and maybe this will work actually. No. So Sagittarius rules the fourth house, and you actually have what we call a stellium in your fourth house, and that is three or more points in the same sign or the same house. Now, you
Hmm.
are one of two cast members that has a Capricorn stellium. Sam is the other
Okay.
one.
Sam. Okay. So
Yep. So
does that mean
lots of
something?
structure. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it's we're getting into your earth signs. This is the first earth sign that we've gotten to. And besides your rising, I'm saying we're on to the next one now. And this has 3 placements in it. So
Okay.
we're talking about that kind of structure. Now, Sagittarius rules it though, okay? Those 3 happen to be in Capricorn in that house, but Sagittarius rules the house. So
Okay.
when it comes to your home life or your domestic life, you're looking for adventure, experience, like spirituality,
Oh yeah. That's why I connected a lot with
education.
Sam. Yeah.
Yeah,
Education,
like
definitely.
learning things, like
I'm so,
yeah, absolutely.
I'm a
That's
data
exactly what
analyst.
this means. It's
I'm a
exactly
data
what that
analyst,
means.
and a lot of people go
Uh,
through either like traditional computer science college or
mhm.
they have gone through like intense boot camps. I've done a lot of self-taught courses to
Mhm.
help me learn coding, to learn Python, to learn R, to learn like data analyst like protocols and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it actually landed me like freelancing jobs and everything like that. But I'm a big sucker for actually learning like remotely and doing my own thing as opposed to like I don't know. I just learned that like I'm big on like skill sets, like learning different skill sets, and that comes within like an entrepreneur like mind that I have, and then
Yep.
also like starting with my data analyst career.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, there's a lot of communication in your chart, and we'll talk about that some more actually when we get up here as well. And I'll talk about the comparison between Sag and Gemini
Okay.
because they're opposite signs, but Sag is about that actual experience. So, like what you're saying, you like want to experience things to learn about them. You
Oh
don't
yeah.
want to just read about them necessarily, especially
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to the best way to live your life at home or your best happiness in domestic life or, those sort of things, or how to be more successful at it, or just better person. You're definitely going to research that and learn about it,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And
I
and
I have to Google
Sagittarians are so
everything.
quick.
Yeah.
They learn things so easily. And then on top of that, having that stellium in Capricorn, this is the CEO of the zodiac, right?
Yeah.
So just speaking from, no, I'm a Capricorn sun. That's what I was like.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
um, but they want efficiency and effectiveness. So in your home life, you want the adventure, you want to learn. But now we're also like, okay, there's business to be done. Like if we want to be successful, we have to get some structure going here, right?
Yeah.
So let me initiate that by 3 different ways. Okay, one is Uranus, which is actually Aquarius's planet. But Uranus is about rebellion and where you want to like kind of buck the system, if you will.
Okay.
And so for you, it's at home. You don't want to be traditional in your home life, but you want to be efficient in it. You want to be successful in it, right? It doesn't have to be typical in order to be successful. You
Yeah.
know that now,
Yeah.
at least.
Oh, that's
Um,
interesting you say that because in my trial marriage with Sam, you don't get to see a lot of it on TV, but we had a lot of like day in the life recordings where we talk about like just home life and everything. Like, what do we do?
yeah.
Who's doing the laundry? Who's this? Who's that? I remember on set kind of being so redundant. They didn't air any of it, but just being like, I don't want to be that typical couple that goes home, does laundry every fucking Wednesday together, and every
Mhm.
fucking Thursday, who's gonna wash the dishes in the morning? This and that. I just want to like fucking corrupt that entire fucking system. At the end of the day, keep it simple. Live your life, but be respectful. If you don't get to the dishes, tonight, like fucking take care of it tomorrow. Call it a fucking day. At the end of the day, like be fucking respectful with your surroundings, with
Mhm.
your fucking partner, and live your goddamn life. I can't live in that ordinary structure of that boring ordinary structure of like, oh, laundry every Monday at 7 p.m. Like this is what we're supposed to do together. Like, no,
Well,
respectfully, I go fuck that.
that
Yeah,
is this. Do you see this right
yeah,
here? That's Aquarius, and it
yeah.
rules your 6th house of daily
Okay.
routine.
Oh,
That's what you were just saying. So,
it's like
but
part of me feels like
before we get there, hold
I
on, we gotta go back to
need a
Capricorn
daily
before we get
routine
there.
in order to function, but at the same time, I
You don't want to
struggle
be
with the fact
typical
that
because it's boring.
I get so bored of it.
Yeah, that's understandable. Not to mention you have your moon there. But before we get there, let's talk about these because, we talked about Uranus, but Saturn, which is actually the native ruler of Capricorn, is here. Now, Saturn,
Yeah.
where we see Saturn in people's charts, if they can, is usually where you need to be restricted a little bit to get the results you're looking for.
Uh-huh.
So in this case, you may be trying to be too efficient or too about how successful home life is, like if everything is clean in the right spot, or
Oh, yeah.
if that you might do that too much in order, and if you back off a little bit, you get better results, or the results that you really want from it.
Yeah, I tend to
That's all
focus
it's
like
saying.
too much on details, that I often get
Hmm.
swarmed and it can become like draining on my brain. Like, okay, I have to brush
Absolutely.
Shiloh once a day. I have to make sure to floss my fucking teeth. I have to make sure to do this. I have to make sure, like, and there's like these lists of things, talk about the list. And I just
Hmm.
feel like if I don't write down the list, I'll forget it. But then if I
Hmm.
follow the list too much, it's like I have zero room left for creativity and just like, just being myself. Like, that's what I've been
Yeah,
struggling
and
with.
that's your rising just colliding with your moon basically
Shit,
in
so what
that,
do I do?
and your sun. Not
What's
that, like,
what's
we'll
the
talk. I
balance?
mean, we'll talk about like your aspects. That shows us like how different parts of you get along, and it'll give us some insight as to like what's going on in there a little bit of
Hmm.
like, oh, this is kind of pissed off at that, or this works really well with this. Like, let's go that path instead. That
Yeah,
sort of thing.
yeah.
Because it's not like you can't do anything or there's bad things necessarily. It's just what happens to come out of it, so to speak. Like, it's just like the relationships of it. It could be a speed bump, or it could be a
Hmm.
really great thing for you. That's why
Oh,
we look at the
all
aspects.
right. It's all about how you
But
perceive it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. So like we're giving you the idea of it, but everything has two sides to it. Like Virgos are life hackers. Like if you need somebody to organize your stuff and all that, you get a Virgo. But also, if you upset them, they will destroy your life. So
Yeah.
that's the double-edged sword. It's like they can
Oh,
hack
shit.
it to death and make it even better for you, or they can destroy it. I think it's because they need so much structure. So we're not going to get into that. Okay, move on. So Neptune is right here for Neptune, which is still in Capricorn, but this is your planet of intuition and dreams. So you want to be able to have a literal a mental connection with your somebody at home or your home life in general. This could even be with Shiloh as an example,
Yeah.
right? Like your dream life is to be at home with Shiloh, and like that's your thing, and that's what Capricorn will help you get that. It's like, what
Hmm.
kind of ambition do you need to get that? I'll give it to you. That's what, like, you have a Capricorn stellium, so you can basically invent any kind of structure you want in your life. That's what
Hmm.
it's telling you, especially at home and also in your creativity. So what's
Yeah.
interesting is that Capricorn rules your fifth house, but we also have another placement here in Capricorn still. So you actually have four placements that are within that Capricorn stellium. And the last one is Mercury, like I was talking to you about before. So you have focus of it in the fifth house of creativity and pleasure. So here's another
Hmm.
big hit from Mercury, right? It's saying, well, now I want to learn how to communicate by by doing it in a fun way, in an interesting way, being creative about
Hmm.
it, and
Yeah.
but getting to achieve something from it, because Capricorn is going to give it that energy, and it rules that fifth house. So again, it's going to look to do this in the most efficient way possible to get you to your goal.
Hmm.
But now we go into Aquarius. Okay, starts in this house, and you have two placements in the fifth house of creativity and pleasure that are in Aquarius. The first is Venus. This is your bottom energy. That's what I like to call it, right? This is because this is what you need to surrender to something, the kind of energy that you'll look for. And we're talking about Aquarius. So you need somebody that is not typical. They don't necessarily, it's not that they don't follow the rules, but you want them to be different, something
Yeah,
interesting about
I
them,
am so
because it's
attracted to
boring
like
otherwise.
eccentric people and like very
Yeah.
different mainstream. And I've always been very attracted, friendship and romantic have always been a very attracted,
Mm-hmm.
like very different people. And I just like different walks of life because I tend to get bored of people like myself or like me.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And even when it comes to like, for instance, I've always wanted to like when I vacation, like for instance, last place I went to was like Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than just doing the typical tourist stuff of being like going to Puerto Rico, I actually went onto the coffee plantations and I'm like trying to get to know the culture. And I like the next thing I know, I stayed overnight like with a family and just like seeing like what they did and how their walks of life is. And like, that's what I yearn of like vacations, right? Like, I want to go to Africa
That's
and I
this
want to be like,
house.
yeah, I want to soak up different cultures and to really get to appreciate like why people are so happy with little things or different walks of life. Like I've been a sucker for that my entire life. I'm so intrigued by things like that.
Yeah, and that's because Taurus, the ruler of value, structure and value, rules your house of travel. That's probably why. And Jupiter's
Okay.
in there. So
Interesting.
absolutely. Yeah, right? Isn't that so weird? But
Yeah.
like in this house right here with the sun, which is your ego self, you are also that's Aquarius, right? So
Yeah.
your ego is being fed that, but then also you want to, in order for you to feel vulnerable, you need somebody else to like come up with something crazy and cool that's creative and pleasurable that you didn't think of. That's even different from something you didn't think of. That'll really like you're like you can almost relax a little bit because you're like, oh, I don't have to always be the creative one, right? That's what that
Hmm.
Venus energy means. It's like, what do I need in order to feel like I can relax or be a little more vulnerable with people? And for you, it's having somebody who's different. Doesn't have to be different like you, just has to be different and appreciate that you're both different, right? The island of misfit toys is what I always talk about for Aquarians because it's literally like you don't all have the same issue, but you're all misfits. And that's kind of how Aquarians tend to
I
feel.
love
They
that.
feel like misfits a little bit, but they're the most altruistic and humanitarian of any of the signs.
Yeah.
So that's kind of their thing. So that's where a lot of that energy comes from. And then on top of that, it rules your sixth house. So right here, you can see Aquarius is ruling your sixth house. This is the house I was telling you about acts of service and daily routines. So you
Yeah.
don't want it to be typical, not at all. You're like, I can't deal with that. You have to get things done, and your Virgo rising will probably have you make lists for important things. So you
Oh
definitely
my
don't
God.
forget
All
the
the time.
important things, right?
You were on my
But
list
having a
today.
little fun.
You were
Yeah,
on my
like
list today of things I had to do, like because my brain will forget if I don't, like, because my
absolutely.
brain's going a million different directions everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to make lists. Like that's speaking my language.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, because Aquarius rules it, that's one thing, but then you also have your moon here, which happens to be in Pisces. So first of all, having a Pisces moon makes you
Emotional.
very tuned in, even if when
Yeah.
you don't want to be, and
Oh,
it's to other energy. Okay,
yep.
so if you do not have black tourmaline that you have with you all the time, I highly
Get it?
suggest you get one. Okay.
Oh, because that helps block out the negative energies.
Yeah, it helps
Okay.
because you're very sensitive, especially
So should I
emotionally
wear it with
speaking.
me, like wear it in my pocket, or just like have a big one in my space?
I mean, honestly, in your space, folks, this is for everybody, have one in each corner of your space
God
and
damn.
then
Okay.
have one on you. Yeah, like in your wallet. Like I have a little tiny one that's in my wallet. So if I leave ever, it's with me. And then I have one in my vehicle. So if every time I leave, it's there with me. And then my house has four in each corner. But
Okay.
if you're sensitive at all, it helps block out some of that.
Okay. Cool.
And I know that you've already been practicing a lot of this, but realizing what is your energy and what is other people's energy and being able to separate the two and push it away. And
Yeah.
how you can do that a little easier is through daily routines, meaning that you'll tend to notice when something's a little off in a daily routine because that's your intuition, that's your gut check saying, wait a second, something's not right here.
Hmm.
And so that's how you can use that intuition to kind of give you like an upper hand, if you will, instead of allowing it to kind of dilute what you're thinking,
Yeah.
because it can give you so much information and want so many different ideas that and you can get that from any kind of energy. You can literally be walking along the beach and pick it up. You can pick up Shiloh's energy. You can
Yeah.
pick up
I do
all
pick
sorts
up.
of things.
Yeah, energy is a lot. I think that's why like my emotions tend to fluctuate a lot throughout the day. And I think like, again, to make this relatable to the people that are watching and have seen my like small story on TV, like I got my own emotions mixed up with my ex's emotions and I kind of like inherited that almost.
And by the way, if y'all haven't seen Tiff's video about their side of the story on YouTube,
Oh
go
yeah,
check it out. And also Psychology in Seattle.
a
Watch,
little bit.
he did all your entire video pretty much. Like,
Online to have the validation of them actually dissecting, especially psychology in Seattle on YouTube,
yep.
doing a
Hmm.
whole breakdown of everything. Like,
Yeah.
damn, that was very validating to hear. For everyone
Yeah.
here, two things. I am joined by Deb with Queerstrology. She's analyzing my chart right now. If you were here the last 5 minutes, we were going off on a tangent about, someone. And then two, because of that tangent, a lot of people were asking questions, a lot of questions about like the show and like the reunion and her coming on the
Hmm.
reunion, all that stuff. You can actually find, I have a video on YouTube called My Side of the Story. If you click the link, don't do it now, but after you watch this, if you click the link on my bio, I have a YouTube video embedded right on that page, that I have a half hour of me explaining everything along with like fucking receipts and just my own experience, being, what
It's
I would have
true.
kind of said on the reunion. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Pisces rules your seventh house of relationships. So
Okay.
again, you like to be intuitively connected to the people that you have connections with, right? It
Yeah.
like you want to be able to like be in the same room with them and not have to say something. Now, just so you know, the seventh house of relationships is long-term relationships, not just romantic, but work, family, friends, all of that, right? So
Yeah.
you like to like that's the kind of people you like to surround yourself with and have a connection with are people that you can intuitively understand. Like you kind of
Yeah.
get each other because it's that weird thing. We're gonna go back to the Aquarius a little bit. Like I'm a little weird, so you don't have to be weird like me, but just appreciate me for being weird, and we'll get along. You know,
Yeah.
appreciate my difference. So, now what's interesting is you also have Aries in here, and Aries rules the eighth house. Now the eighth house is the house of sex, if you will, uh, but also transformation, rebirth, death, all of those things. Yours
Okay.
is ruled by Aries. So don't be too quick to go for that, all right? I'm just saying, no. Uh, Aries is the youngest and the most like impatient of the signs. So when it comes to wanting to get in, like finding your true voice or your power or transforming into whoever you're going to eventually be, you're in a bit of a rush to get there, right? You
Mm-hmm.
want to
Yeah.
get there. You're like, okay, what do I need to do to get there? Just like tell me or something. Like I'll try all the things. What do you need me to do? Now, I don't know if you happen to see Natasha's reading that I did with Natasha on
A
Friday.
little bit, not too much, but a little bit.
But I did the two of you's compatibility, which you actually asked me about just out of curiosity, as a friend, even. And it was interesting because I was showing it to Natasha and saying what the differences were. And Natasha is an Aries sun, okay?
Mhm.
So that being said, you probably attract that energy, right? In the sense of different connections and amazing wing people for each other, right?
Mhm.
Because you
Yeah.
have that kind of energy where you're like, you want to try that? Okay, I'll help you. Let's do it. You know,
Yeah.
kind
Good
of that
stuff.
energy.
Yeah. We have that. Yeah. Kind of.
So you can like
Okay.
maybe kind of even know they're about to ask you to do that, and then they
Mhm.
do it, and you're like, hell yeah, that's like prime. That's prime. Oh, are we gonna get a Shiloh shot right now?
Actually, a Stormy shot. Oh
Oh,
shoot.
Stormy.
All right,
Lucky
this is
cat.
Stormy.
That's
She's
so
a rescue
cute.
from Hurricane Sandy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in New York, Hurricane Sandy. She's
Everybody
so
always
needy.
cares just about the cats now. When we show the cats, did you see me pick up? Did you see me pick up
Yeah,
the cat
yeah,
here?
yeah.
That's Rosie. She every time I'm on a video, I swear to God, the cat wants to come in here. No
Oh yeah,
other
she wants to.
time, but
Yeah, she was just trying to sit on my laptop right now, and I was like, "Nah, girl, we gotta wait.
hmm
We
I
gotta
got
wait."
Rosie her own laptop. She's got her. Oh my God,
Good stuff.
vicious.
Yeah.
She's a Scorpio. She's a
Yeah, yeah,
Scorpio, isn't
yeah.
she?
Yeah, but she's born in November, early
Yes,
November.
yes, Scorpio. I just
She's a
nailed the
Scorpio.
cat sign. Can you believe
Nailed the
that?
cat sign. She's like, she will be so lovey, but if you rub her the wrong way, like literally rub her the wrong way, she'll go
Yeah.
like that. I'm like, what the fuck, bro? Like,
I mean, who does any Scorpios that don't relate to that? Hello, that's
oh my god. And then
that's Scorpio
Shyla's
energy.
born September 27th. Is that she's a Libra?
Libra, yeah, yeah.
Libra, yeah,
So it's
yeah.
tough for Shiloh to make decisions sometimes, just because
Okay,
no,
yeah,
Shiloh wants to be fair.
yeah, yeah. I
Did
can
all
see
the
it.
dogs get to play with the toy? You
Yeah,
know,
I love it.
probably
I
quite
was
the
like,
communicator
is
too, but that's the breed.
animal astrology like similar to humans?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
So,
Someone said, whoa, there's animal astrology? Yeah, apparently there
yeah,
is. Yeah.
I do. I'll read them for you if you want. All I need is the birth date
Your
and
Shiloh's
time. So,
chart.
yeah, that's if anybody wants to get a reading from me, by the way, I do this sometimes, and not just for celebrities or reality stars or anything like that. I actually will read your chart as well. Check out the link in my bio. Now we're to the part where we're in the eighth house, which is that house of transformation, right? Rebirth and stepping into your power. So you
Okay.
may be urgent to get there, but when you get there, we have Taurus, okay? And you have Mars or your top energy there. So this means that you want to be in control of how you're stepping into your power. You want it to be something that is valuable and will gain possession, probably of knowledge, but usually of wealth in some way. And that's whatever you think it is. So that could be
Yeah.
knowledge if that's what
Yeah.
wealth is to you, right?
Abundance or something. Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's about abundance. And for you, you want to be in control of your possessions. And, also like when you can chill and snack, like you don't want people telling you when you can do that, Like I
Oh, yeah.
worked hard to transform and get myself to this point, and now I'm going to eat my snacks and you're going to leave me alone. That's Taurus energy, right?
Yep, I can relate.
So as long as people aren't stepping on that, you're fine.
Yeah.
They, you know, like in synastry in general, which is compatibility in astrology, we want some similarities, but also some differences, if you will. So,
Okay.
but this was the one we were talking about for your traveling, right? So Taurus, while it also has Mars, it rules your ninth house. Now, this is Sagittarius's house, and it is the house of travel, experience, and adventure. Okay, so
Mhm.
now we're talking about, excuse me, when you travel, that you want to experience it, you want to find out the structure of where you're traveling to, what things
Yes.
of value can you gain from going there,
Mhm.
what knowledge or possession can you gain from that. And
Yeah.
in fact, your Jupiter is here, which is actually, excuse me, in its native house, again with the devil's lettuce repercussions. in its native house is Jupiter, and Jupiter is the planet of expansion, okay? Luck,
Okay.
things like that. So you are pretty lucky when you happen to go on these travels and these adventures that you usually end up finding something of really great value. And the more things that you can find of that to add to your collection,
Yeah.
the more that you will expand yourself as a person,
Yeah.
because it's wanting you to gather this.
I was just talking to someone about this the other day when I travel. I don't like that whole. I feel like most people when they travel, what do? They do the basic sightseeing stuff, and then
Mm-hmm.
the other times it's like they're just trying to figure out where they want to go to eat. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what? I like to be immersed in culture, into finding the little nooks. I want to go, I think I was talking to this person the other day about if you were to go to New York, no, I want to, if I'm going to go to New York City, I want to go somewhere deep in Brooklyn, to the fucking hoagie shop and figure out, go inside there and figure out how this dude was raised, the shit that he had to go through to be able to open up the shop, what his goals and aspirations for his children is, to see his culture and where he came from. As far as the casting process, we were matched
Yeah.
psychologically. We had psychologists actually match us.
Mm-hmm.
We were supposed to have multiple matches on the show, and cohesively fit 10 people and 5 couples together. So we were dissected with many questions, psychological evaluations. But you know what? Now as I think of it, I feel like we should have also had an astrologist in there to match us as well.
Hello.
That's part
Yeah.
of the equation. They should have.
Yeah, because if you saw, I did everybody's couples with their trial partner and with their initial partner, but then I also did, if I was to match couples, who would I match together?
Yeah.
And so that was fun, because as an astrologer, I could see things in your chart that other people don't see, and also the fact that a lot of astrology compatibility happens to go with the sun sign. So people are like, oh, it's just other air signs with other air signs. That's not necessarily
Mm-hmm.
the case. There's all these different things, especially your big six, which is your
Yeah.
sun, moon, rising, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, that have a
Mm-hmm.
big effect on that. So, you know, that's crazy. But all right, now let's talk about your MC. MC Tiff. No.
Wait, what's MC mean? The Mars? No.
It stands for medium coli, but we also call it midhaven. It means top of the sky in Latin. So in that sphere that we're talking about, it's the very highest point. So in astrology, we call it your
That
point
means
of
I'm a top.
achievement. It could mean that, but really your Mars in Taurus means you're a top. I mean, I have a Mars in Capricorn and I'm a stone top. So if you have a Mars in Taurus, then you're definitely a top. Okay,
Got it.
there's some
I used to be a
structure there. You're like,
sim.
no, I'm going to decide how this is going to be done.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't mean that you're all top, as we know from your live the other night. Most of us are switch in general. Not all of us are stone tops like myself. So
Yeah.
more power to you. Get
I've
yours, man.
I've
No problem.
learned to give in every now and then. It's
Yeah, I'm
okay
too
to
old for that
receive
crap
every
now.
now and then. There's nothing wrong with it. It's all right.
Yeah, no. So having an MC, by the way, in Gemini, this is another Mercury hit because again, ruled by Gemini, or I mean, ruled by Mercury. Gemini is the storyteller of the zodiac. So
Okay.
unlike Sagittarius, remember how I was saying like your home life and like your past, you've come from gaining experience through things,
Yeah.
tactilely experiencing things. Well, now your MC wants you to kind of research a lot of different things. Don't get glued to anything in particular, but find the story, find your story.
Mm.
In fact, and that's what Gemini wants to do, and Gemini Midhaven, because it's your ambition, and it wants you to have these really thought out and interesting ways of communicating, because that's what you're trying to do in order to achieve. So
Yeah.
again, we're talking about communication and achieving through communication. It could also be, data analyst is similar. I mean, you
I
are doing
resonate.
communication.
I resonate that with what I'm trying to do with my platform now that I have. Like I have like a lot of different layers to my personality. Like, sometimes I make
Yeah,
fun content, sometimes I connect with people in different ways. And
absolutely.
I think it's just as long at the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily have to be one thing, one category. It could just be me, and I have multiple layers to my personality, and I can like show bits of all of them to people. And I think really like anyone can.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of what astrology is, even, is
Yeah.
like we get to see kind of more in depth your little pieces, your particle entanglements, if you will,
Yeah.
with the planets and stuff. Um, Now, the fact that you have your Gemini NC is great, but then we also have Cancer in here. That's the deep emotional capacity, right? And
Mm.
it rules your 11th house. So this is Aquarius's native house. So this is your social house, like how you like to be social, also like the kinds of social groups that you would join. Yours
Hmm.
happens to do with in-depth emotional capacity. Lots of therapy kind of stuff, or like
Talking
things like
things
that.
out. Yeah.
Yep.
That definitely helped me like with
And you're with that,
transition.
you're that person in your group too. Like people will come to you for that because they're like, what do you think about this? You know,
Yeah.
because you have the emotional capacity to step outside of the box, which some people
Yeah.
can't,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I
Because
tend to
when we're
think,
in it, it's different than when you're outside of it, and you have a lot of in-depth emotional capacity to be able to reflect that on other people so they can see it.
I
But
tend to
it
be
may
a
be hard for you to see
devil's
it.
advocate, like, or
Mm-hmm.
show people like, I do radiate with emotional depth when I have conversations with people.
Mm-hmm.
And I like, especially like when I go out and like host these pride events lately and everything like that, I
Mm-hmm.
actually really enjoy having these one-on-one talks with people that are kind of like beyond just the show, like just, emotional depth conversations. And
Yeah.
like they'll last like 10 minutes with one person. But the small talk is like kind of where I get social anxiety with like, what's it like being on TV? And I'm like, it's just that little, I'm
Yeah.
like more like, let's talk about your deepest fears, like even like your favorite color, and we'll start talking about
Mm-hmm.
something deeper at that point. Like, what is your favorite taco shop? We're going to go into detail as to why it's the most fulfilling and amazing experience or best taco you've ever had, and emotional reasons and how it made you
Yeah,
feel. That's
absolutely.
probably
So
what
that
we're going
makes
to go down and talk
exact sense. That's exactly what it's saying. I mean, pretty much anyway. I mean, you're that you are allowed, or that you have been given this voice in order to help other people in that particular area, socially speaking, which means even what you're doing for us, and using your voice, even if
about.
it's not further in your platform in any way, shape, or form, you still have already started to do that in a way. Now, what's interesting is Leo is ruling your 12th house. So the 12th house is your intuition and dreams. Leo, we may know, the only fire sign on the show was Yoli. She's a Leo.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
Leo stellium, in fact, which means she has a lot, like you have a lot of placements in Capricorn. Hers is in Leo. And so they're
Okay.
actually your opposite sign. And you may find that you actually usually like Leos. You get along with them really well, and Leos tend to like you too, because the opposite signs, they kind of draw each other in because they have a baseline of some sort of similarity, but then they have different ways of doing things. And obviously
Yeah.
for an Aquarius, that's nice. And for Leos, they get some adoration, which is nice
Yeah.
because Aquarians are very accommodating like that. And that's the thing about Leos. And for you, for your 12th house, so your gut instinct has to do with the kind of response you get. Okay,
Yeah.
so they're looking for they're looking for adoration, but it's not egotism, because even though they're ruled by the sun, a lot of times people think that Leos are egotistical, and they can be, sure, but so can every other sign. And if you want me to be really honest with you, honestly, Scorpios seem to be the most egotistical. Now, not every single Scorpio, just like not every single of any sign, right?
So
But
like Stormy, my cat.
yes, yeah. See,
Yeah, she's
Scorpios.
very
What
egotistical.
a
Yeah.
no, just um. But if you are a Leo, you want to hear things not just like, "Oh, you're beautiful," but like, "I can't believe that you put on the exact right outfit for this night out. Like, I can't believe that your socks match your scarf or whatever it is. Like
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff that Leos like to hear. Not
Okay.
so much not so much like you can tell them that they're beautiful, but the attitude is more about getting adoration for doing something. So for you, it's like when your
Yeah.
intuition speaks to you and it is something creative or something that gives you pleasure, you would like people to acknowledge that. To say,
Yeah.
I see you did that
I
right
see it.
there.
I see it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of what all that stuff means. Honestly, if you want to look at that and you have more questions, we can talk. Like we'll
So
just write to me and let
I
me
have
know and
I
I'll
have a
answer
quick
whatever.
question for you. Maybe
Yeah.
intuitively can answer something. How based on my flow, like based on my chart and my needs in a
Mm-hmm.
relationship,
Uh-huh.
what's like a thing that like I wouldn't say is like my weak point, but like that I'm most congruent with that could like help my personal growth too, or like that serves me better.
Yep. Sagittarius. You need to date a
That
Sagittarius. Yeah.
Sagittarius energy, like, but like not maybe not just like a sign, but like I don't know, like personality, like
Yeah. Yeah, but that's the Sagittarius kind of personality because they are about education and understanding. They're not going to like all the structure that you have, but they
uh
need it. Do you see what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah,
And you need somebody that's fun and is not too structured because you have a lot of it already.
yeah,
You have that Aquarius energy and even that Pisces moon, and those are very different than any of the
different
rest
things.
of your chart. Yeah.
I'm being pulled in two different directions all the time because I'm Aquarius and also a Pisces moon, so I'm just constantly like seeing the emotional side of things, and I'm like the other side of me is like this humanitarian intellectual that's more like meh meh meh, like just going off into
Uh-huh.
my dreams and will leave things behind just because I have a mission to pursue in my life, right? But then I'm like
Yep.
stuck in this like oh emotions, and it's like I'm constantly like going back and forth.
Yep. And I mean, the only thing I would worry about with you with the Sag is that they are so independent that there'll be times when you may want them to be around and they're not,
Yeah.
because of your structured stuff, like I was saying. And Pisces moons are they want attention. They like it. They just don't want to be bombarded with the deep emotional like work that it takes. So if somebody's really a lot easier for them to deal with, you know, because you already have a lot of work that you're constantly doing as a Pisces moon. So
Yeah.
having somebody that kind of doesn't also weigh on that,
Oh
if
yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Sagittarians, because they're so independent, they just and you have your fourth house of home is in Sagittarius as well. And
Hmm.
you said yourself you love to learn different things. You love to like kind of go through things. And your MC is in Gemini,
Hmm.
and and Sagittarians get that. They get that you want to tell a story, that they will call you out. And that will actually help you because you're like, okay, you're right. Like, I didn't have the receipt for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, like that's the kind of stuff you need. Not necessarily somebody to call you out in a bad way, but to be like, are you sure? Did you
Hmm.
see that on TikTok?
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
coming in here telling me that right now?
Yeah.
Because Sagittarians need that tangible experience. So they will question I have a lot of Sag in my chart as well. They question everything, right? They're like, why is that? And I want to know why it's like that.
Yeah.
You can tell me, but actually experienced it.
Hmm.
Okay, well, I'm going to go experience or talk to somebody who has literally already experienced
Yeah.
this. Otherwise, get away from me.
I
And they can
respect
come off as know-it-alls a little bit,
that. Hmm.
but that's kind of because they do know it all. They only talk about the stuff they know.
Yeah.
So you know,
Yeah.
that's their energy. But yeah, I mean, I think you and Miley would be great together. You and Miley Cyrus.
Miley
So
Cyrus, I actually don't like Miley Cyrus at all. But again,
that
I
is
don't know her
hysterical.
personality, but not a big fan of her music. or anything
Yeah, well
like
then
you.
actually that sounds probably
To be
perfect.
honest.
She would probably love the fact that you're not into her music. She probably would love that.
Oh my
And
God.
she'd be
Yeah.
like, "Are
I mean,
you
obviously I don't know
serious?"
her as a person,
Thank
but
you.
it's based off of what I
Yeah.
see, So.
I'd have to look at her charting because I don't remember the other parts of her chart offhand.
Oh
Like
my
we'll have to
God.
see where her Leo placement is, but yeah, like something like that
You
because
know, what's that
that
saying? It's
energy.
not, it's something about the fall, it's the climb. I can relate to that.
Honestly,
In my past, I tend to date in my past a lot of Geminis and Tauruses, and I have dated a Sag. My longest relationship was a Sag.
I rest my case. I mean, it might not have been the best one, but you probably learned things from that, and you've learned a lot of things since then. So if you
Yeah,
got into one with a different one, and maybe
yeah.
it's a Sagittarius that has some Earth placements, but not ones that will step on your toes. So where they want structure is in a different spot than where you want it because you don't
Yeah,
want anybody to get in your way, and vice versa for them.
yeah,
Taurans
yeah.
would probably not work for you.
Yeah,
Okay.
Tauruses, no, I've always been like very like,
Because you have a Taurus
I
in Mars, so you're very dominant with that Taurus energy, and
mhm.
Taurans are stubborn. So you could really start getting into it with them in a certain kind of way because that's your dominant energy, and if they're being stubborn back, you're going to get into it
What about another
a little bit.
Aquarius?
Like Sam,
Yeah, sure.
yeah. I mean, you guys were fairly compatible, but you both had a lot of Earth, so that's why she has a lot of
But
structure as well. And there
so
were
two
points that you
Aquariuses,
really enjoyed, yeah.
yeah, two Aquariuses can be compatible, but I think correct me if I'm wrong, but like a lot of like the moon sign, the rising sign, all that stuff also dictate
Hmm.
the compatibility as well. So it's not just the sun
Absolutely.
sign, correct? Okay.
Yeah, because just the sun signs your ego. So you both have a similar ego, which for Aquarians is great because again, that's that misfit toys thing, right? But what I
Yeah,
did see is that, like as an example, she has a Capricorn Mars, so she also
yeah,
has an Earth Mars, but it's Capricorn. So it's going to be like, I don't know what the heck you think you're talking about, Taurus, right?
yeah.
Because Capricorns are the cardinal Earth signs. So they're like, I will start this structure. You need to calm down, and you will not like that. You'll be like, I know what I'm doing with this structure, okay? But there, you could see certain things that really did match well, that you wanted more structure in. Do you see what I mean? So, like, if it was communication or any of those things that Sam helped you with because of their structure, then that's what you may want to look for in somebody else. But
Mm,
other than that, you have so much of it. It's probably better to have more of a balance chart, and yeah, fire
I
is
love
really
it.
good for you. Hmm.
Nice.
I would say Aries too, but they might be a little bit too much for you. Like Natasha's an Aries, but
Mm. Oh, so
like
I have dated a couple Aries in my life before. I have dated a couple Aries,
most
and I
people have.
see, yeah, I
They're the
tend to be really
quick death.
good friends with Aries. In my life, I've had a lot of Aries that
Hmm.
I've been really good friends with.
Yep, and
But
that totally makes
romantically,
sense.
I could see we're a little bit too much. Feed off of each other. We're like, like when
Absolutely. Hmm.
dogs are being bad and they're getting into things like mine over here is, getting into
Shiloh.
something that she shouldn't. Yeah. Um, Shiloh, what are you doing? Shiloh, what are you doing? I have no idea what she's doing right
She's
now.
like,
What are you doing?
you have been on this
You're
call
being
for
bad.
far too long. Look
Are
at
you being
Shiloh,
bad?
everybody.
Are you being bad? um, so like, how like when dogs that live with each other, they like
Hmm.
if one gets into the trash can, the other one's gonna play with it and get right to the trash can. Like that's
Yep.
how Natasha
Hmm.
and I are. I feel like we're like both being bad.
A
Like
hundred
we,
percent. I could see that. Yeah, that's
yeah,
what I was literally
we'll
like.
both like
You
just
guys
do it
would be
together like a
great
tag team
wing
thing.
people because
Yeah,
you get each other's energy, but it's not an intimate kind of like romantic energy. You can
not
still
at
be
all.
intimate,
Not at
right?
all.
As Natasha says, intimacy isn't about sex, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Just
Thanks for a reminder, Natasha. Put me back on planet Earth. Thank you. And
oh man, but that was
yeah,
great. That was
actually,
good
a lot of
stuff.
that was derived. That whole conversation, a little behind the scenes. A lot of that was derived because of when you're going on there, you have matches, right? Like,
Yeah.
scientific
Hmm.
psychology matches. And the way that production kind of laid things out, it was kind of like when you match someone, when this, when that. The whole thing is like they softly manipulate you to match to someone. And I wasn't finding matches with anyone. And then so when the
Yeah.
intimate conversations came apart in the dating process. When you'll see a couple highlights of people talking about sex and intimacy, and like some of them got highlighted. I felt kind of awkward because I don't want anyone to like force that on to me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so like during production wanted us to like hold hands and like look into each other's eyes, and I'm just like, no, I'm not going to do that because I'm not stupid, because you're going to use that clip to make me look like I'm falling in love with somebody else and holding their hands and stargazing. If you look at, there was a scene in the dating process where you saw Mildred and Aussie like hold hands and look at each other. That was the hand-holding exercise drill that they were doing, So I'm like, I see right through that bullshit. I'm not doing that. So, like, again, if I wasn't actually really wanting to romantically be with someone and hold their hand and this and that, I'm not doing it, because they can also make it look like it's something more than what it is. And I didn't want to leave Sam on. And at the time when I was dating this person, I didn't want to, if I was still in a relationship with this person a year and a half later, I didn't want her to watch the damn TV and be like, what the fuck did you just do to this person? And I'm just like, I think this opening scene, you see me like coming back to the apartment with her, and she was like just taking off my tie and doing this and this and this. Believe it or not, and then the next scene you see us in bed, like doing things, right? That was 2 separate nights, just because it wasn't their fault, but it got to a point where it started feeling a little invasive, because I started feeling uncomfortable about, okay, stop, camera's down, let's readjust. Okay, roll. And I can't like all of a sudden say camera's rolling and then all of a sudden get in the mood again. So I was like forcing myself to like get in the mood or like to do things, and it just didn't feel organic. So I was like, just stop it. So what you actually see that night, the storyline, right? It looks like I'm just all up on her, blah, blah, blah. Then we go in and like do this thing on the bed. Happens like week 2 or something like that, because there was one time it happened on the bed, so they just glued that together. And that's why coming into the project, I was like, it wasn't even called the Ultimatum yet. Season 1, there was no ultimatum. We filmed back to back with season 1, so we filmed not even knowing what this show was going to look like, or even what the show was called. It's like there's so much to jam pack, from stories to pronouns to this, that, and just like such a small. Again, if you would have fit more of the mask things, or more of the more of this, more of that, more of that, it would have taken away even more from our romantic storylines, which we only see a little bit of to begin with. We think that 10 hours between 10 episodes is a lot of time to pack in, but when you pack in 3 years of a relationship times 5 relationships, and then times another 5, because now you're talking about trial marriage like couples. There's only so much you can fit in. Like, it's crazy. There's only so much you can fit in.
So everybody, make sure you're following Tiff here, YouTube, also Instagram, the other Cameo.
Instagram Threads, baby.
Oh my god. I'm too old for this crap, Tiff. I'm like, now what is this I have to deal with now? Threads? Okay. I guess we're doing it. Whatever.
Threads.
So yeah, make sure you're following Tiff. Go check out their video on YouTube about their side of the story and all the other cool podcast stuff that they also do. What's it called?
My viewers followed Deb. Yeah, Fleet's podcast. And people that are on my side right now watching the live, go follow Deb, Queerstrology. She just gave me like an entire chart reading of my entire life and personality, and broke down why I just suck at romance. I'm just kidding. No. No, but give me some deep, cool insights into just the way I operate, which makes a lot of sense, and actually helps me in the process of not being too hard on myself, which we kind of went over as well.
That was honestly, it's the biggest lesson out of that.
All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much for watching, everyone. Appreciate you all that kind of hang out here.
Yeah, thank you all for coming. I super appreciate it. And look, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all of you. So I appreciate you. If you're looking for any services from me, check the link in my bio, and check Tiff's link in their bio as well. All right. So all of you have a great night. Thank you again, Tiff. Cheers.